All right. Hello, guys. Thank you so much for coming here. And as you might have heard here, my voice is a little bit tempered. A little bit of a too energetic meeting with the Backstreet Boys and the Spice Girls in the karaoke bar on Friday. So if anyone doesn't or can't understand anything or something, please just wave and I'll try to accommodate. Or sing a song of the Backstreet Boys and I'll join in. All right, my name is Simon. I work for Markably. I'm from Vienna, and I'm one of the organizers of the Flutter Vienna meetup. Here are my socials. And I will go on because this talk is only 20 minutes, so we'll do a very quick wrap-up. And this talk is, or the idea of this talk, it's really not supposed to be a full workshop after which you'll be able to make the perfectly accessible app. This idea or this talk is really based on the idea that I think a lot of people would love to make more accessible apps. A lot of companies would love to make more accessible apps. But the problem is, like, you know how it is. Like, I work in an agency, everybody's in the beginning fully on fire. Yeah, let's make it accessible. Everybody should use my awesome app, it's so great. And I don't know, this TikTok, Tinder for cats or something like this, everybody should be able to use it. But as time progresses and as everything goes by and the budget gets lower, people start canceling stuff. And one of the first things that gets canceled is usually accessibility, because the majority of people don't need it, will not notice it anyway. And my idea, or the idea of this talk, is really to give a very low level entry into this whole topic, to just show how easy it would be to actually make an app a little bit more accessible without much extra work. So like I said, it's really more about the basics, covering the basics, going in that more people can use the app. It's not about making everybody being able to use the app. And hopefully this will inspire you or bring you to a point where you try implementing it, read more about it, and then start really making amazingly accessible apps. So just to cover the basics, what are accessible apps? Apps that can be used by anyone. I will not go further into this because I think the fact that you're here shows that you know what accessible apps are and how important they are. And just to mention a little bit of a keyword, the WCAG guidelines, they're just one of the most recommended guidelines for following accessibility on apps and to implement them. And just so you've heard them, or you can bash them out next time you're at a meeting. There's 3 levels, level AA, and AAA. And they just go from like weakest to strongest. Like level AAA is really hard to implement. Like it's really almost impossible to hit it 100%. But the more you implement, the better. And in my opinion, you should always go for an AA at least, like for official stuff. Perfect. Let's talk about the most common barriers like we have as app developers. And of course, one of the first one that comes to mind is motoric stuff, like everything that has to do with your hands, like whether it is you're having issues like really pinpointing stuff on small surfaces, or whether it's like you have limited mobility in some ways. This is something, and I want to say this with all these things, these barriers and impairments. It's not something like often when we think about accessibility, people think about like very strong cases, like cases with really like people that are blind, people that maybe not be able to move at all with their hands and stuff like that. But there's a lot of shades in between. I think this is very important. I personally, when I work on stuff like that, I usually think about my grandmother. My grandmother is an elderly lady, like she's awesome, but she has trouble like with her smartphone. She has one of these big ones, and she has a lot of issues with a lot of apps that she really likes and would love to use more, but she can't because some of them are very complicated. So please don't just always think, you know, like I'm really going for this and this example. There's a lot of shades in between. Another one is like a visual barrier or impairment. Basically, like we're talking here not only about like blindness, but also color blindness, low vision, and a lot of steps in between as well. There's 2 more. Hearing and cognitive and learning. To be honest, I will basically blend them out a little bit. The reason for that is that hearing, like most apps that we write, don't really involve that many audio elements. If they do, you know, like it's the typical thing, like there's a video, add subtitles, and so on and so on. but they're not so interesting on a technical level. The other thing is like cognitive and learning, which in my opinion, like there are some technical things that you can do, like navigational structure and so on and so on, but most of them are more content based. So it's really more about how you structure content, how you divide stuff up in UI. So we will focus on motor and visual, and with motor I will quickly summarize it. I rewrote that like just 2 hours ago because in the morning, like Craig already mentioned a couple of things. So we'll just quickly repeat them and then focus a little bit more on the visual impairments. First, I just want to show numbers because PowerPoint, you need to show numbers, right? So the World Health Organization estimates that about 15% of the global population have an visible or an impairment in general. This doesn't mean, of course, like I said, they're not able to use your app or it's impossible, but this just means like for some of them it might be harder, some of them impossible, or somebody, it might just frustrating for them. It's actually kind of weird then that 93% of websites and apps are not optimized at all or only a little bit for people in this range. It's a huge group. So this is just something I wanted to bring to the table. And the reason why I brought the numbers below here are, in my opinion, like, or from my experience as well, like it only takes 5 to 8 hours for a normal app to make it 50% more accessible. And like I said, this is exactly the process that I want to show you in the next couple of slides. So yeah, let's get started with the motoric things. Like I said, motoric things, my grandmother. Like she has this phone and she just tries to, tap stuff. And one of the most important things here, and it's a super easy rule to implement, is having a minimum size on elements. So basically, make sure that your elements are at least this size. This is the recommended size by the WCAG. You can find this online as well. And of course, it hasn't to be exactly that, but it's a rough guideline. But it just makes it a lot easier for people with mobility issues just to hit something. The second thing is avoid complex gestures or offer alternatives. Like this is a common thing, you know, you have this app and you make this really cool gesture to control it. But there are some people who really have trouble with this. Like there's really people who have trouble either with the coordination or have trouble with the actual performance of the task. Another one is like provide visual feedback on tabs. This is something often overlooked in Flutter. It's very, very interesting to me coming from a web perspective because on web you implement hover everywhere. You have always like a focus, a hover, and so on and so on. But I feel like in Dart, of course, because you don't hover stuff, people often forget about these actions and this highlighting of actions. So it's very important, like the inkwell, for example, that just has this ripple effect that goes out to implement stuff like that if you implement your own gestures. Another thing is like typical snack bars. If something happens, show it to the user because there's some people who have issues, for example, with their sensitivity of their fingers. They don't realize like they touched the surface or how hard they touched it, so they're never sure, did it really happen? And in this case, just showing a snack bar, I don't know, everything you did in your life is successful, then it will be a lot better. So it really, really helps just for them to recognize, okay, it worked, what I was trying to do. Of course, like I said, in the motorway, there's a lot of other things. This was just very brief. What I want to focus about is the visual. First of all, because it's the more visual one, it's the one I can actually show you and let you see. The second reason is, and this is something that I'm very, very interested in, I would really love to know how many of you have actually like played around with a like TalkBack or another like typical device that. Okay, wait. From now on, okay, who has used like a voice assistant or something, or not a voice assistant in common sense, but a TalkBack? Or, okay, like the hands are. Like, there's not many hands here. I will show you in a second. The reason why I wanted to do this is because me personally, it took me a very, very long time to actually try it out. How would other people, how would blind people, for example, use an application? And this is something everybody, you know, thinks or has a picture in their mind, but the problem is like no one has really tried it. And to be honest, this was the reason why I wanted to start this talk, because on accident my phone broke and the screen was damaged and I had to use it. And I realized how extremely hard it is if people don't optimize it for it. And so, like I said, the goal is really like to give you a little bit of a piece of that and show you how we can work with this. So first, we will just dive into like some of the smaller things, like just smaller measures that we can quickly fix. One of them is like a typical case is poor color contrast. You know how it is. You have amazing designers. We all love designers. They make these super cool, fancy things that look very, very nice. And our designer, for example, she loves to add designs that look like this. There's a very important message, like I love cheese. And she does this with very nice colors that blend into each other and that look very nice. The only problem is, like, for a lot of people, this is really hard to read. It might be even hard to read for you on the screen with the sunlight. And just for that, like, this is a lot easier to read, and this is more of a recommended version. The reason why I took this in there is because what I hear a lot, and this is one of the misconceptions in my opinion about accessibility, is people say I can't go all in accessibility because we have a very specific design, we can't change it, we can't make the font huge and the colors popping or something. And the good reason is like this is just not true because you don't have to. Of course, it makes sense if you have a little contrast for everybody, but people who really rely on that actually just people who rely on that actually just use their operating system settings. So all operating systems basically have settings where people who really, really need it, this assistance can activate higher contrast, and it will basically work automatically. Like Flutter will change colors, the operating system will change colors, and it will work. But the reason why I'm having it in here is there's also something for you for Flutter. There is a high contrast media query. Basically, that tells you, did the user enable this setting in their operating systems? Because sometimes the operating system might be off, or sometimes there might be small issues. The next thing is, like I said, font size scalability. Again, there is an operating system setting where you can scale the font size. And the only thing you need to do as a developer is Flutter works with it automatically. Flutter adjusts the font. The only thing you need to do is make sure that the icons scale with it, because they don't do automatically. And the second thing is make sure that nothing gets broken, because this is the typical thing. It doesn't help. We have experience with that. And another thing here is, of course, as a solution, please test your layouts with high scale. It really doesn't take long, but just put it on highest scale, test it, see if it looks good, and fix it if it doesn't. And there's the text scaler off media query property again that you can use to get the scale value the user decided. So if you have widgets that don't scale automatically with it because they're custom made, or you have icons, you can actually scale them with the fonts to make sure everything is in sync. Coming to the big point, like I said, talking about screen readers, I have a short demo for you that I want to show you. And maybe, yeah, I'll quickly show it to you, and I really, really want you to listen to it carefully. So basically, I want to show you how a screen reader works. The basic idea is very simple. You have your phone. So you have your phone, and on your phone, like a person who is not able to see like on the screen would just tap on the screen and can flick to the right to go from one element to the next, or left to go back. A little bit like tabbing on your keyboard when you go through a website. This is the first version. If they want to, for example, like submit a button that they just highlighted, they just double tap. The second way is like holding your finger down and then going wherever you are on the screen. It will just read whenever you hover something, and as soon as you want to add it, you double tap again. The second one is easier if you know where elements are. If I know there's a bar down there, a menu bar, it's easier for me to go down than to flick through all of it. Okay, and the good programmer that I am, I created a very inaccessible app. Not actually on purpose, just writing it out, not caring about accessibility. It happened, and I'm very sure a lot of the apps we all write are kind of this. And I just want to show you what one of these apps sounds like if you don't hear anything. Feel free to close your eyes if you want to enjoy it, but you can also leave them open.
Button. Double tap to activate. Button. 1, 2, 3, button. Double tap to activate.
As you can hear, not very helpful, right? Like we as like people who see the screen, we know exactly what's going on, right? We have a little bit of a carousel, we can switch through it, we have a back and forth button, blah, blah, blah. But for people who don't see this, they're very, very confused by this. The next one I really love, because this happened on accident. You see this small line here? This is a visual separator, where I just misused a thing. And please don't start a revolt right now, because you will see it's very motivating for us Flutter people.
Dash 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 2 button. Far far away.
I laughed so hard when I did this on accident. But you see there's an element actually that's not useful, but it's still read out. And just imagine you don't see this and you hear this and you're like, what's going on here? Okay. And, oh, sorry, let's start again. Yeah.
I agree to the terms and conditions. Double tap to toggle. I agree to the terms and conditions.
So basically what you see here is, first of all, like I said, we have this button up there that is not even recognized because it's an icon, and the screen reader doesn't know that 3 lines. This icon is, in this case, exactly a burger menu. Then we have an image, completely ignored because screen reader doesn't care about it. Here, this is just a button, button, button. And then we have this awesome line that's just read out as dash, dash, dash. And here we have 2 elements that for us obviously is a checkbox, and next to the checkbox we have the text that goes with the checkbox. Of course, for a screen reader this is not obvious. These are 2 different elements. And so if it says like, I agree to the terms condition, click here or check this, it will not work because you're just clicking on a text. So the question is, what will we do about it? And here like comes the semantic widget. Like one of the things we do for buttons and icons that are not explained, we can use the semantic widget to add some labels. We have the semantic label property on images to detail the images. We have an exclude semantics widget that allows us to tell the screen reader this is not part of like the semantic tree. And we have the merge semantics, which allows us to group things together. I will quickly go into details. The semantics widget is basically very simple. It's just a widget you can wrap around everything. Here, for example, a gesture detector. You can wrap it around and just define a label. So very, very simple, like you would do with an alt tag or like something like this in the web. This really helps a lot, and then it sounds more like this.
Menu toggle button. Double tap
nice.
to activate.
Perfect. The semantic thing has a lot of properties. I'm just going to list 2 or 3 of them, but please, there's really a long list of them. One of the most important one is the live region. If set to true, this will read out something that appears on the screen. So for example, if you have a snack bar and it appears, it will read out the message immediately, which is very cool. Yeah, then we have image semantics. This is very simple, like just adding semantic label, like an alt tag for images. Then we have exclude semantics. We just wrap it around the widget that we want to ignore. And, sorry, there's one missing. With the merge semantics, you also wrap it around, and then it basically just takes it as a group. And what I want to show you here is like the overworked version of this.
Menu toggle button. Double tap to activate. A bar chart showing my sales image. Go to previous chart button. Double tap to activate. Go to chart number 1. Go to chart number 3. Go to next chart button. Double tap to activate.
Nothing happens here, sadly.
Far, far away, behind the word mountains, far from the country's vocalia and consonant. Not checked. I agree to the terms and conditions. Checkbox.
Yeah.
Double tap to toggle.
So as you can see, it was really, really simple. I just wrapped these few things, and the whole screen is already a lot easier to read, and it just makes more sense. And it really took 5 minutes to implement this. Yeah, like I said, we added semantic widgets, we added semantic labels, excluded the dash visual thing, and we merged the check and checkbox. Yeah, just maybe some small tips. Like I said, we're already wrapping up because it's a very short talk. Just very, very short tips. First of all, one tip I would really recommend is enforce accessibility with widgets. Create a widget that has a requirement on semantic labels. So like this case, I'll make a button, and the button has a required property, semantic label. This means everybody who works with this button has to implement this. And you know how fast it is. You type 3 words in there, and it's already a lot better. Same with images and so on. This is just for you to know that it exists. There's actually like very nice accessibility tests by Flutter, like provided out of the box you can use. And there's also a very nice package called Accessibility Tools by Rebel App Studio that shows you in your app like problems that you might have with your app. And it also has some scaling factors and stuff like that. Perfect. And you can enable it for the web, just as a small tip, because this is often asked if this is really possible. And here are a lot of awesome resources. I will upload the slides so you can just read after them. And that's about it. Thank you very much.